We use a variety of tools and techniques and ideas in the courses that we design. One of the things we use is readings. What are the readings from the people you want to engage in conversation? Now, you can do original readings. We oftentimes will take complicated philosophical and business issues and write a technical note. So we'll write a very short note on rights and what rights are. We'll write a very short note on how to build a framework or set of questions to do ethics. We'll write a short note on this idea of relativism versus universalism. So we try and take pretty complicated scholarly debates and distill the essence of that for the student. This keeps the course on the cutting edge of the scholarly debate, but it doesn't ask students who are professional students to become scholars. And we try to write this in a way that has lots of examples that's relevant to their experience. So writing these technical notes and using some original source material is one of the things we do. The second thing we do is we use lots of case studies. Case studies are real business problems. In ethics, sometimes they're disguised because it's hard to write great cases about questionable problems. People don't want to bear their names for all kinds of reasons. So we write lots of disguised cases, but they're based on real situations that managers face. And we'll have, in almost every class, we'll have some version of a case that's there. That's pretty traditional readings and cases. Some of the different things that we do, we try to take advantage of the communications technology. So we'll do what I like to call a live case. We did one recently on the controversy between food versus fuel. We wrote a very short summary of the controversy around ethanol and using corn for ethanol. Does that drive up the price of corn, and hence does that drive up the price of food, primarily for poor people? It's a big controversy, and it's not just limited to corn and ethanol. So it's this whole idea of food versus fuel and what that framing does. But what we'll do, we'll give the students a very short thing that we've written or an article, and then we'll give them the assignment, go to the web and find out the case facts. Bring your websites to class, and let's sort through what the information is, who the stakeholders are, what their point of view is, and what some of the issues are. One of the ways we do that is we'll take an issue like this and give them an assignment. You've been commissioned by a company or a CEO of a company to give her a briefing on this issue. Use all the resources of the web to figure out what the issues are, who the stakeholders are, what some of the conflicts are. And this is, again, the students' world. They know how to do this a lot better than I do. And they come with some pretty, incredible stuff. They find stuff that I couldn't find. We've done this. You can do this on a particular company. You can do a live case on a company. There's a lot of stuff on the web now about certainly companies that are iconic brands. They all have critics. They all have their own websites. They're all public policy issues on them. And so we've used a sort of web-based technology much more recently. So there's readings and notes and cases, web-based resources. We have also used student cases or vignettes. We ask the students to write a one-page vignette or caselet or mini-case from their experience that ends in a decision that they've got to make, and for the most part we ask them to pick something where they weren't sure what to do. Then we'll gather those, we'll send them out anonymously, so we take the student's name off, we'll send them out anonymously, and then we'll have several classes based on using these vignettes as cases. And then we'll ask the case writer at the end of that class, would you like to say something? And these are conversations that make a difference, because the student listens to his or her peers talk about this situation. Now remember, they've already figured out what to do. So in a way, they're listening to their peers assess their own reasoning process. The best comment you can ever get in a class is when a student who's written a case, after listening to this conversation, says, "Wow, I wish I'd had the benefit of that conversation before I did what I did." Now you've engaged them in a conversation that makes a difference. So there's the readings and notes, the cases, the web-based resources, the student-based cases. And a couple years ago, we put a lot of resources into designing an ethics simulation that's been used by thousands of students. And the simulation puts students in a position of having to decide, having to make tough ethical choices kind of under the gun. They have a certain amount of time to make these courses. And this simulation called Turning Gears is about a toy company that faces a lot of challenges to its mission, that faces a lot of challenges doing business globally, that faces a lot of challenges in terms of its customers, its parents and children. And the simulation's been pretty well received. Again, we find that this takes a student where they are. They're used to playing video games. They're used to these kinds of interactions, and you can design a course that does all of these things. Another thing that we try to do as a technique is we try to start every class with reflections on the previous class. Ethics is a reflective discipline. It's a critical discipline. It's a discipline which requires sometimes some thinking. Things need to percolate. It's not just rational, it's about emotional, it's about feeling. And sometimes letting things sit for a while, a day or two, coming back to them and saying, no, who has reflections on the previous class? We don't replay the case or the decision of the previous class, but we try and lift out of that and find some gems of wisdom, if you like, from our reflection. So those are some of the techniques that we use. I almost never lecture to the students. That would be a waste of their time and mine too, because there's so much energy that they bring to this conversation about ethics. Now I know having that conversation differs by culture. It's easier to do in some cultures than others. But I've taught all over the world, and I find that in some cultures it's harder to have the conversation, but if you pay attention to the culture, you can really do that. And ethics as conversation is much more important than ethics as I'm going to tell you how to be ethical.